Welcome to Nasdaq Europe, encompassing the dynamic exchanges in the Nordics and Baltics. Nasdaq Europe is at the heart of a unique approach to democratize access to capital markets, supporting innovation and growth. Nasdaq Stockholm, founded over 160 years ago, has become a critical institution in the development of capital markets and a model for markets throughout the world.
The Swedish capital markets is in the spotlight as a great success story, so we're spending a lot of time in Brussels making sure that future regulation builds on the success of what we've seen has made the capital markets work, and that it inspires the rest of Europe to follow suit.
Led by a unique approach to foster thriving financial ecosystems, Nasdaq's European exchanges have shattered expectations and become blueprints for European competitiveness. With impressive growth in their main indices over the past decade, these exchanges have outperformed many of their major European counterparts. And with hundreds of IPOs in just 10 years, Nasdaq Europe has become a powerhouse for both local and international companies. Strategic government initiatives and innovative grassroots engagement have built robust environments that benefit small and medium-sized enterprises, retail investors, and a broad financial ecosystem. Join us in diving deeper into the future of finance, where local roots meet global ambitions. Amid the growth of Nasdaq Europe, one fact has always remained true. The markets successfully balance international appeal while serving the local economy.
The strength and success of our capital markets in the Nordics, specifically in Sweden, has attracted a lot of attention, both within Europe and outside of Europe. And we see a lot of, on the one hand, international investors coming to look at the incredible companies that we have on our markets. So both in primary participation and secondary participation.
My name is Mattias Danielsson. I'm the CEO of Yubico. I've been with the company for about 15 years, and I'm based in Stockholm, Sweden, but of course working with our customers worldwide. Yubico is the market leader in providing strong, phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication, and this means that you protect your login from unauthorized access. Now, I think the biggest part is the recognition that Nasdaq Stockholm has as a trusted place for international investors to find opportunities. It does provide a quality stamp, and it provides access and interest of renowned investors. And I think a lot of people have the impression that to be applicable to US investors, you need to be on Nasdaq. But as we expand as a business, it also provides an opportunity to invite new shareholders from other parts of the world.
There has been an initiative launched on the EU level called the Savings and Investments Union. It's been a discussion that has been taking place for many years, but has now really come to fruition in terms of much more concrete dialogue in terms of how do you make sure that we create the blueprint for a more competitive Europe, in terms of creating a stronger, more harmonized and more homogeneous capital market, but also a single market to operate in as a company. So there are many different levels. Of course, we as an exchange are much more focused on the financial market dimensions. And there, it's been interesting to see that they are promoting the Swedish market as a great example, because we've been able to engage the community, the retail community, and the institutional community, not only to support large companies, but to participate in the growth of smaller, mid-sized companies through the public markets.
One of Nasdaq Europe's key achievements is building an environment of success for small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, encouraging them to stay local. In fact, 90% of listings here are valued under $1 billion. These small and medium-sized businesses are the backbone of every nation's economy, and they represent 99% of all businesses in the EU. However, these companies typically enjoy fewer options for raising capital than larger businesses. In most countries, public equity markets for SMEs are underdeveloped, if they exist at all. But in Europe, the Nasdaq First North growth market has created an active exchange for companies to grow.
One of the great successes of First North is that it's not only a great marketplace by itself, but it's also become a great stepping stone for companies to take the next step to access more investors, to get more visibility, to get a deeper market to work with over time. We've had 140 companies transition from First North to main market. At the end of the day, it's really about making sure that rather than buying a suit that they will grow into, you're allowing them to buy a suit that fits them from day one. And so we've seen a lot of companies since 2006 access the First North market, start their journey as a public company. And what we have seen over time is that we have also seen more and more institutional investor support, not only Nordic, but also international, to participate in companies earlier, because they also understand that a lot of the innovation starts with much earlier phases.
I think there are very few markets in Europe that are of that size that cater to the key corporate sectors that we have. And we see a constant interest about bringing those companies to a wider accessible public. And arguably it's the most successful platform that is currently existing in Europe.
So Yubico went public through a merger with a SPAC, Anthony, one of the few companies that has done so in the Swedish market. So we merged with the SPAC in September 2023 and thereby got listed on Nasdaq First North. And then we went for the main market in December 2024. Yubico was started in Sweden, but pretty early in our development, we got Google as a big customer. And at that point, the company pivoted from being a Swedish startup into primarily focus on the US. We already had a subsidiary there. And then for several years, we had like 80% of our business in the US. As we grew bigger, we did get some support from well-respected Swedish investors that are also active on the public markets. So it seemed a logical step for us to get access to the public markets.
By listing them in an earlier stage, we can have companies that grow in the market and all the retail investors get a chance to take part of all this growth. At the same time, it's the retail investors that make it possible for these growing companies to get the capital they need.
We've had roughly 140 companies transition from First North to main market. Has become a great success for us as an exchange, but more importantly for the market, because many of these companies would probably not have been listed today if they would not have had access to First North and probably would have looked for an alternative way. The EU is now replicating a lot of the legislation and trying to mimic what we've been able to create here in the Nordic markets, because they want to see exactly that. They want to see smaller, mid-sized companies access the public markets and then take the step into the main market.
The high-quality ecosystem surrounding Nasdaq Europe has also been a boon for prices, leading Stockholm in particular to outperform every other exchange in the world in historic annual growth since 1966. With world-leading technologies and operational approaches, Nasdaq Stockholm has created an environment where companies can thrive and investors can prosper.
Given the unique nature of what we have both in First North and the main market, and we see that attraction and that demand increasing as a framework, Nasdaq is continually looking at how do we make that more accessible to investors and corporates outside of the Nordics. There's a number of initiatives through dual listings, as well as simplifying our listings processes, and also looking at the ability to clear and settle and also execute on the exchanges. The continuous improvement program that looks at making our Swedish markets more and our Nordic markets more accessible.
The biggest benefit that I see with us now being on the main market is that we get access to a different set of institutional investors. Yubico generates 1 or 2% of our revenue from the Swedish market and more than 60% from the US market. And to maintain credibility in the local market, it has been important for us that we have US-based investors.
So from people outside the Nordics, from international investors, institutional investors who see good quality investments in the Nordics and come in and want to trade on those markets.
We try to engage ourselves in order to make sure that we are building a capital market in our respective Nordic markets in the best possible way, in a transparent, predictable way, together with our investor community. So they understand what is our vision, how are we bringing them along with our vision, what is it they need from the capital markets, what is it that we can support them with to make sure that this is the deepest, most liquid and most active market in a trustworthy, credible environment, which we can potentially operate, but it's not on a unique basis, it's together with them. So that dialogue is very, very important. We build the fundament of our listing offering on the credibility and the trust that we are given in terms of providing that connection between the investor and the company itself, and to be able to transact that investment in a trustworthy place with credibility.
A key component of Nasdaq Europe's success is the Nordics' strong retail investor base, especially in Sweden. Compared to the rest of Europe, Swedish households hold a higher proportion of their investments in listed companies.
One aspect that we love with the retail market is the fundamental democratization of the public markets, giving access to an investment opportunity. As we're seeing the private markets grow stronger and stronger as a parallel world to the public markets, that is not a world where you see it's access to a few investors rather to the broader community.
The reason I think financial education is so important is that it helps more people get into the market. If we compare Sweden to a lot of other European countries, we can see that the level of financial literacy in Sweden is very high, but we can also see that the participation in the market is also very high.
Sweden has a very deep capital market, very high household and pension rate of savings, which effectively means that a lot of capital can be deployed for investment on public markets.
If we look at the last 10 to 15 years, it's maybe the investment savings accounts that's been the most important initiative. Before we had the investment savings account, you had to pay taxes on every profit you made. Now, instead of paying taxes on every profit, you pay a pre-decided % of all the money you have. So you know more in advance how much tax you will pay. Everyone should have the chance to participate in the market and take a part of these profits and take the risk they're comfortable doing.
These achievements in the Nordics and Baltics are just one part of a bigger story. How Nasdaq is serving the broader continent with a one Nasdaq approach that incorporates financial technology. Today, Nasdaq's financial technology division has emerged as a vital force of innovation to the world's financial institutions, helping to solve their most critical challenges across the risk, compliance, and trade infrastructure. As a result, Nasdaq's clients now see Nasdaq as a more complete partner than ever before, able to help solve their most complex and important challenges.
So for us, One Nasdaq is a unique proposition. I think we're very fortunate to be able to operate marketplaces at the heart and in the fabric of capital markets and be able to deal with a huge amount of customers who have different needs and solutions.
The fact that we're now building a toolkit which could help companies in the space of regulatory management, better management of regulatory requirements, compliance requirements, anti-money laundering, that spills over into the banking community, into the financial community in each of our respective markets. That's also something that we're bringing to the table as we're meeting with regulators to cross-fertilize on our success and our ability to inspire from what we have seen has worked in the US. It's important that EU gets the vision for things and investments union. It makes it tangible because we are in a critical phase where we have to fund a lot of innovation, and that should make sure the future success of the European Union.